to take the helm?
Go for it, Till.
I'm ready. Good evening. We're opening the Georgetown Planning Board's meeting, March 27th, 2019. We've got on the agenda minutes, vouchers, correspondence, 2 public hearings, an A&R, and the planning office. May I have a motion for the minutes, please?
Madam President, Madam President, Madam Chairwoman, I move we accept the minutes as written.
Prime Minister, I will second that.
Well, I'm ready. I'm not making any more motions.
Any
I'm done.
discussion? No?
I didn't see anything till
Neither did I.
look good.
Ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion carried. 4, 1 absent. The vouchers, please.
If you'll hear it.
Go for it, Harry.
If you'll hear it.
You're the motion man.
I would make a, excuse me,
This is a surety reduction.
This is a surety reduction?
This is a surety
That's the
deduction
surety reduction from
that
last
we
week,
voted,
right?
yeah,
Isn't that
last
correct?
meeting, yeah.
Yeah, okay, to formalize, I move to approve the surety reduction check of $93,350.13 in accordance with the planning board's unanimous vote on the 13th of this month to reduce surety from the account balance of $107,968.72 to $14,618.59.
Second? That's easy, I can do that without.
Ready for a vote? We already voted, so do it
Yeah,
again?
we already did it, but I guess this is just to sign the voucher.
Right.
Okay,
Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, if you'll hear it, I'll make a motion to accept the correspondence as read.
Second? Is there any discussion about them? I thought myself the bowling alley sounded like a neat idea.
Yeah, it did sound like a neat idea, but guess it's against the code.
I think all it means is they've got to go to the ZBA and make their case, and
then-
then it comes here.
Yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
kind of neat. Yeah.
John, any requests from the ZBA about our opinion about this?
No.
No. All right, moving right along.
Looking at everything, the public hearings were both noticed for 7 PM,
Yeah, yeah,
so, great.
Okay,
Window for both, right?
yeah.
I need a vote for opening the public hearing for the first zoning amendment.
I make a motion to open the public meeting for the first zoning item.
Building.
Sorry, building zone.
You can call her Madam President too if you want.
Second.
Madam Chair, I will second that for the purpose of providing information, answering questions, and hearing concerns about the proposal to amend the present definitions of building and building height found in Article 1, General Provisions 165-7.
All right.
Nicely seconded.
Even a blind squirrel trips on a nut every now and again.
All right, any discussion about it? No?
No, it's clarifying and
Yeah,
pretty
we did
straightforward.
go over that
We discussed-
previously.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just clearing up the actual definition for building and
Should we
building
vote
height.
to open?
Yeah, yeah, if anybody wants to say anything.
Do you want to say anything? Got one person in the audience.
I vote yes to open.
I do
Yes, to
too.
open it.
I vote yes too.
Okay,
Unanimously. Excellent.
discussion?
Perhaps, if John would be kind enough to just,
Reiterate it?
yeah,
Yeah.
explain what it's about.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay, this public hearing is a matter of clarifying the definition for building that's located within the definition section of the zoning ordinance. And there is some deleted language that's being proposed, and I'll read the amendment as it's written. Building, definition thereof, a structure forming a shelter for persons, animals, property, or activities, and having a roof. Where appropriate to the context, the word building shall include the principal accessory uses to which the building is put. And the deleted language that presently exists within that definition, I'll read that. The limit of height of all buildings shall be 2.5 stories, not to exceed 35 feet. The limitation of height in feet shall not apply to chimneys, ventilators, skylights, bulkheads, and other necessary features usually carried above roofs. Okay, so that's the new definition for building. And then the proposed new definition for building height. I'll just read that real quickly. Building height, the vertical distance from either one, the average undisturbed existing natural grade at the foundation of the building to the top of the roof ridge, or two, the average finished grade at the foundation of the building to the top of the roof ridge, whichever is less. The average undisturbed existing natural grade or finished grade shall be established by averaging the grade 6 feet from the four main building corners and their midpoints. And then it goes on, one more sentence. The limitation of building height in feet as provided in section 165.3, attachment 3, intensity of use schedule, shall not apply to chimneys, ventilators, skylights, bulkheads, and other necessary features usually carried above roofs in specific to the building. So that's the new language that would be added to building height.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a motion after that, after we're through with deliberations and the public
I've
hearing is
deliberated
closed.
all that I plan to deliberate on this stuff. So,
Okay,
Does the public wish to?
there's no public present that wants to discuss it. Want to make the motion?
Actually, I just have a quick question about this. John, I'm not expecting you or asking you to read the mind of the building inspector when you say this. I know that most of these changes were, it's my understanding they were requested by the building
Yeah.
inspector so that we can clarify this, because this is
Yeah.
a more appropriate place.
Yeah. So, and the reason being too, the building height clarifies that in the town of Georgetown, it's not limited, buildings are not limited to 35 feet in height as a broad measure. In various zoning districts, they're allowed to be different heights.
That's determined by the intensity of use schedule.
Right. And that's why that's referenced, as opposed to, as it was previously referenced in the definition for building.
Building, yeah.
35 feet. And that was a contradiction relative to the other intensity of use schedule.
So this just defines building height and points those various heights in those different zoning districts
Yeah,
to, in the same way that those various zoning districts in the intensity of use schedule would be setback distances
Yeah.
and things such as that, frontage distances, things such as that, square
Yeah.
footage.
I mean, the
With
building
that-
inspector, he was confused and, he doesn't like to have section of the zoning ordinance contradicting one another.
Of course not.
You don't know,
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
if you're right or wrong, making decisions. So this cleans that up.
Would that include cooling towers?
Cooling towers,
Cooling tower,
if it's specific to the building,
specific, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's
specific
attached to
the-
the building.
yeah,
Well, sometimes above, if you have a flat roof, you have a cooling tower
yeah.
For
What-
air conditioning.
for your,
Yeah.
for your HVAC.
Yeah, when we talked about this before, what we didn't want to include was, cell phone antennae systems
Right.
that were, say, corporate carrying type of,
Right, because that's not part of the building.
it's not specific to that building.
Yeah,
A cooling tower would
Or a
be.
dish,
Yeah,
a satellite dish.
yeah.
That wouldn't be specific to the building.
Like for the,
Could-
specific to
could
the,
be.
to the function of the building, I guess
Yeah.
the resurrection of the building?
To the
making
quality
building?
of life of the residents.
That's
of
different,
the str-
yeah.
Of the dwelling, but usually those don't project higher, they're usually mounted lower on the
And solar
side.
panels on the roof would require a special permit anyway, under the solar bylaw.
Yeah, the solar
Yeah.
farm.
But usually those would not, again, project beyond.
They're not very,
they're
usually they're
not
kind of
very high,
flat, yeah, more or less.
Anything else, I'll try to answer.
I think, that pretty much wraps it for me,
Yeah.
Me too. Okay.
if you'll hear it. If
Are you
there's no
ready?
more comments
Any
from
more
the public,
comments?
Motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to,
Did you make the
do you wanna,
motion?
how do you prefer it, John? I've gotten over the
Well,
years.
deliberations would be over, and then you would
Deliberations would be
close the
over, the hearing would be
public.
closed, and then a motion
Yeah,
would be made.
you could
to-
actually close the public hearing and deliberate.
Eh,
You-
In
yeah,
business, right.
yeah.
So once
So
you,
you-
What about, I'm reading the draft motion, and it says I move to approve the proposed amendments. Are we approving, or are we recommending
You're
to town meeting?
recommending to town meeting,
all right.
yeah. That,
And we can do that
Yeah.
in the hearing, or immediately after, or we could do it next week, or
Yeah,
once the hearing's closed.
yeah, once the hearing's closed.
It's everybody's preference. Let's close the
You wanna
meeting.
just
I
get it
close,
done with?
yeah, close it so that, there's no further discussion, there's no further deliberation. Now we just make the call.
It's
Well,
20 minutes
well,
past 7. If anybody wanted to be here for this, I think they probably would have been here by now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main difference between closing a hearing is that you cannot take any new information afterwards.
Okay.
But you can go ahead and
Certainly
make
chat
your
about it.
motions or vote on it or
Right.
something like that. Okay,
That makes sense.
all right.
If you'll hear it.
Go for it, Harry.
I will make a motion to close the public hearing for zoning amendment concerning a proposal to amend the present definitions of building and building height found in 165-7.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Now we need a motion to recommend.
I move to approve the proposed amendments to the.
Recommend.
I recommend,
Yeah,
I move to recommend to
The
the
proposed.
Board of Selectmen
In town meeting.
to put this on the warrant at town meeting, the following: the proposed amendments to the present definitions of building and building height found in Article 1, 165-7, definitions and word usage of the town's zoning bylaws as most recently adapted, and to forward same to the Board of Selectmen for inclusion in a zoning warrant, you had it covered, article for the 2019 spring annual town meeting.
very good.
I second.
All right, we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
And the record should show that that was unanimous, with one absent, right?
One absent. Now, the last one. We have to open it, the public hearing.
Madam Chair, if you'll hear it, I make a motion to open the public hearing in accordance with provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, to consider amendments to zoning bylaws, marijuana businesses, Section 165 through 161A and
Excuse me.
I, God bless you, to adjust the required separation distance between marijuana businesses and the uses listed therein and the criteria for measuring such distance.
I second.
All right, all All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
John, do you want to read the
Yes.
amendment?
Okay. The amendment, as it's written and proposed, would be to amend section 165-161 in parentheses I, separation. Distances shall be calculated by direct measurement from the nearest building or area of use. That is the new language, building or area of use, striking out property line. So distances shall be calculated by direct measurement from the nearest building or area of use of the land used for school or child care purposes or places where minors frequent or any other use listed in above section 165-161 in parentheses H to the nearest point of the building or buildings. That's added. Stricken language as proposed, property line. Continuing to read, of the proposed marijuana business parcel. The distance requirement may be reduced by 25% or less, but only if, number one in parentheses, this is existing language, the applicant demonstrates that the marijuana business would otherwise be effectively prohibited within the municipality. Number two in parentheses, with regard to locations protected pursuant to section 161, H in parentheses, and 1 through 11. The applicant demonstrates that the marijuana business will employ adequate security measures to prevent diversion of marijuana to unauthorized minors. And it's also included, for reference purposes, is the entirety of said section H. And that provides for the list of eligible locations that would be subject to the 300-foot buffer between marijuana businesses and those businesses or uses of property that are protected from that, from marijuana businesses. So all of that being said, the purpose for this ordinance proposal is that right now, in the marijuana business overlay district, which is represented on this map here, and I'll zoom in once we are totally oriented, but starting at exit 54 at 133, and there's Healthy Farms is the existing business located there, and that's within the marijuana business overlay district. And heading north from that point, these mauve-colored areas with is a little symbol within it, and it's an inverted C. This is the marijuana business overlay district, which was all previously adopted as the medical marijuana district. So it's the same as it was when medical marijuana was the state statute. Now that medical marijuana also includes all marijuana businesses, this is now the overlay district for all of the marijuana businesses, medicinal, recreational, wholesale, or otherwise. And that marijuana overlay district does reach up all the way. I'll zoom in here. Might as well start from the top and work our way down. Closer. Okay, so that's Jackman. And this is part of the marijuana overlay district as far north as Jackman Street. And then going down here, this is Jackman Street here. And this is Farm Lane, which is also part of the marijuana overlay district. And I'll zoom out a little bit. Going the wrong way here. Hold on. Get out of there. Here we go. There's a delay in this that you have to really be touchy-feely about. This is Jewett Street. These areas are all part of the marijuana overlay district. Following Jewett Street south. And that's kind of an island of the existing marijuana overlay district. And then continuing south, the district actually reaches on both sides of I-95. This being Martell Way here, this being part of the marijuana overlay district, and then this stretch of Tenney Street. Now, these yellow areas, that's RB zone, that's residential zone. And again, this overlay district continues on all the way down to exit 54, basically. And then reaches back over on the west side of I-95 to include these properties that front along Carlton Drive. And again, continuing south, this is National Ave. This is the access road here, and this is what's known as National Ave that leads out to 133. So right now, the...
Close that box, Joe?
Yeah, yeah. Hold on one second.
Absolutely.
And I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, I just wanted to double check.
Yep. And we can take our
That-
time with this. No one's rushing this. This presentation can take as long as we need to.
This parcel is where Mello is thinking of,
That is correct.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and just for reference purposes, this building was recently sold, and there is a new long-term owner of that property located there. We'll actually be dealing with the site plan pretty soon on that one. And
Isn't there another grower out there?
this property right here,
Yeah.
that has been given a host agreement. They're still working on getting their plans
Yep.
ready for
Very good.
us. There are basically, right now, there are, it's either 4 or 5 host agreements that have been granted by the Board of Selectmen.
Wow.
And only one is retail, and that's the existing one. Everything else is wholesale. So when we're talking marijuana businesses, there's a multitude of allowed businesses. Not one of them is proposed as a retail. And in all likelihood, there is a limitation to one, because that formula is based on the number of package store licenses in town, and there are 3. And the formula only produces 1 retail marijuana. So everything that else that's being being proposed, and we'll be dealing with site plans very soon. They're starting to come in. They're for wholesale.
And these are growers.
Grow,
they're just
there's,
growers,
There's
yeah.
one that's a manufacturing of liquid byproducts.
Beverages, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
Basically non-retail,
No, everything's non-retail.
no sale to the public.
Right.
Business
And there's
to
no-
business sales.
There's no allowed identification within the state statute for any type of cannabis leaf, or, the word or term cannabis can't be used in the sign. So the state statute tries to make this use as innocuous as possible.
That you don't know what it is.
It's not
Yeah.
sticking you in the face. It's not like, I'll give you an analogy, the triple X stuff, there's no limitation of what the signage can include for that stuff, and, it can be,
But nobody's gonna open up a shop that's the dope peddler.
right. And, already that has been the subject of one of the proposals. They weren't reading the fine print of the state statute, and the fine print specifies that you cannot utilize the marijuana leaf or, any actual word that defines or can be defined as marijuana. So
I
can't
hope they
use
read the
cannabis,
fine
they
print
can't
when they
use
run their
marijuana.
business.
What's that?
I hope they read the fine print when they run their business.
Yeah. They have it inside, they just can't tell you what it is on the sign. So,
Now, the state statute, I have a question, perhaps you would understand, so answer it. The state statute, as I was reading it, says that once you get an established marijuana facility, you're allowed to have a total of 3 licenses for different types of marijuana process. So would retail be one if the person wanted to go for one?
No, it would be, and this is, I'll give you Healthy Farms, which is now actually called Mission. They grow for sale, the marijuana cannabis product. They produce liquids derived from the marijuana plant. And then they actually have edible marijuana products. So that would be your three
Right.
types of uses. They're unique at this point because they are the only retail, and they're not even selling retail yet. They're still not open for business. That's probably a month out.
And so any one of those applications that we're getting now can also do retail?
No, they're specific to what they've applied for with
Yeah.
the state and with the town.
Yeah,
So they have a host
I mean, in the
agreement.
future, they can get in with one and then add two more.
Yeah, we don't know. Nobody knows.
That's-
But right now, there's a
But the code
maximum
now is
of
building
one.
that one.
Right. They're getting
Retail
they're
sales.
getting a host agreement that's limited to the
To one.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
whatever they're asking for, but they have to pass muster with the community.
You said that Healthy Farms has a different name now?
Yeah. It's called Mission, and the actual company that purchased Healthy Farms, the name is a company called Forefront.
Forefront.
From Phoenix.
So they bought it from Overgag?
Yeah.
Oh,
Healthy Farms still owns the building, so they're leasing it. And the name has gone from Healthy Farms to Mission,
to Mission.
which is a national, this company is branding their company, nationally, and that's the name of it.
It's all about brand.
Brand, yeah.
And that's for both the recreational and medicinal.
And it's what was the
And
name?
it's retail.
What was the name of the parent company?
Forefront.
Forefront.
They're headquartered out of Phoenix, Arizona.
It's interesting, because that's big marijuana. That's not what a lot of people are talking about letting
yeah.
ownership, local ownership.
There's a rush to get into this market, as there is with every market that opens up.
Sure.
And the money is huge.
It's gotta be astronomical.
Big corporations, the biggest corporations are now all involved with this.
It's the green rush.
Yeah.
So we're open for a discussion, yes? Okay, Harry?
Just, what's the impetus here, John? I know that people are gonna, if they're paying attention, they're going to see a warrant article, and it's going to say, brought to you by your local planning board.
Yeah.
In reality, this wasn't something that was on our radar.
Like, where did it come from? Yeah.
What this came from, it's not too long of a story, but the town, when this law was passed, or, put before the voters, it did pass in Georgetown. Georgetown, in a broad sense, gave it the green light. Majority voted in favor of it. Majority voted in favor relative to the medicinal, so, Healthy Farms was a result of that. The town was, I'll give it a label, proactive with the medicinal marijuana and created the medicinal marijuana overlay district. Well, quick history of the law, the people in the business, never stopped trying to have marijuana legalized at a recreational scale in Massachusetts. So once they got the medicinal approved, the next step was to
Right.
get, and they did. This was put out to the voters to decide. I don't think if it stayed in the legislature, it ever would have passed, but, the broad spectrum of the electorate
It was put on
throughout
the
the
ballot,
state
yeah.
voted. And Georgetown was one of the towns in Massachusetts that voted in favor of it. Therefore, it moved in the direction of actually establishing a bylaw. It already had the overlay district. The overlay district for medicinal ended up being automatically, pretty much through public hearing process last year, the overlay district for both medicinal and recreational.
We removed a small part that was in the IB
Yeah.
district, in the downtown.
So, that was done. Some people may have really did the measurement of the overlay district and figured out with the 300-foot buffer going from property line to property line, you know, residential, abutting residential zone to the marijuana overlay district. And here we go, right here. This is where we want to get into this discussion in detail. So this is a residential zone, right? Now, all of these properties, I'll drag that down a little bit. All of these particular lots, and I'll give you a specific example. All of these particular lots that directly abut these residential properties, this one right here, and this one right here, and this one right here, effectively prohibited from being a marijuana use in the future. There's a host agreement already right here with site plans that are ready to be submitted for this property right here, which, unless you take a real close look, there's the residential zone right there. So this property here that has a host agreement with the town already in place and they're ready to come in, you know, just recently was discovered that it's within 300 feet. And so now what's being proposed in our ordinance is that the elongation of this lot can allow for their building to be built beyond 300 feet from the border here, the property line, I mean, I should say the district line with the residential. So the building could be located in here, which is beyond 300 feet of this district line.
And what's the size of that building?
That particular building was permitted through a, not permitted through us, but, you know, host agreement up to 60,000 square feet.
Up
It
to
may
60?
60. It may only be 40, but, you know, they were permitted up to 60. So,
They're at tier 6,
yeah,
That's a
grow
pretty-
facility?
yeah.
That's a huge.
Yeah, just to grow.
Tier 6 grow facility.
Just, that's just grow, yeah. And then, this particular, site right here is actually, that's a host agreement location too, that is the site plans are pending at this time, but, that's beyond the 300 feet, so that's safe. But when I did my count, and I can show you this on the other map I prepared, and I did describe it in my staff report. Presently, as the ordinance states,
Today.
only 16 lots of the 72 included in the marijuana business overlay district.
Oh, 16?
16 lots out of 72 would be allowed. With this change, the potential is for up to 40 lots. Some of these lots are, you know, really not developable, but, you know, they're wet, but it would increase the number of marijuana businesses that would be allowed. The problem is right now, and I just want to show you this right here. This is over in Carlton Drive. This lot already has a host agreement, but again, it's within 300 feet of this property here, which is, you know what that is?
That's the town forest.
Or park, you know, so there's an issue there too with the language that's presently in place. Now, for most people, it probably wasn't anticipated. For most people, it was never anticipated that there would be such such a strong interest in locating all these marijuana businesses in Georgetown. That being said, you know, as far as the potential revenue production, in speaking in economic development terms, all of a sudden, the town is it has the potential of an awful lot of revenue being produced relative to the product that's being proposed. So you know, in a sense, it's an unanticipated economic development boom potential for the town.
Unanticipated?
I don't think anybody could have thought of this was going to happen so quickly and so strongly.
Seriously,
But here in Georgetown, though?
It's
these,
the
they're
trend.
libertarians.
For 30 years,
I think
people have
that
been
was,
complaining that our industrial district has nothing in it,
Which is
that the
there.
the residents have all the tax
I know,
burden.
yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Why don't we get more of an industrial base? Why don't we get away from the residential tax base? It's finally come.
I think the money was the motivator from the voters,
From the get-go,
state.
sure.
It was no secret. But the question I have now, if in fact the people do not want to support your amendment, and the building inspector has denied it because of what is existing on our bylaw, those people have the right to go to the zoning board of appeals to ask for a request of a waiver of variance or whatever. Right now, there is a process. Are you okay?
No, there's a wire that got
Oh,
tinkered with and it went blank.
so is that true, that's how it would happen if we didn't pass this?
It would be,
Is that what would happen? Is that what would happen?
Yeah.
The appeal would be to the
If
ZBA?
you don't, any bylaw that we have, if in fact, you wanna do something different than the bylaw on the use,
Mhm.
or the process, whatever it may be, the side dimensions or whatever, and the building inspector has denied it to you, your recourse, the next step is their zoning board. So they
Yeah.
have that option.
yeah, no, I mean.
It's just another hoop to jump through. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this simplifies matters significantly. Now, it does look like they can ask for a 25% reduction, which would be 75-foot reduction.
Can I?
But I had a question about that. You can follow on this if you wish.
I
I'll
just-
come back.
Can we come back to that?
Certainly.
Because that's very important. That's key to what I'd like to talk about.
Yeah.
But just for clarification, if a community sets a special permit process, and that special permit granting authority is not the ZBA,
Mhm.
would not the
Appeal.
building inspector have to recommend appeal to the special permit granting authority?
No,
No. Interesting.
we're the
Interesting.
ones who would grant the special permit,
Right.
so there's no appeal by us.
We have no authority over dimensional issues within the zoning ordinance. The only authority to
Is the ZBA.
vary, yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Interesting. So the ZBA could waive that.
Right.
Interesting.
The only thing, you know, the only thing we may wanna take into consideration, I'm trying to make sure I'm being objective here, but, you
Of
know,
course. we are.
broadly in everything, is that, you know, this whole law was put in place by the will of the people. Again, it never would have been passed, left to the legislature and the governor. So the people spoke, you know, it was pure democracy. Here we are having a public hearing on an issue that the voters of this town did vote in the affirmative, the majority will. You know, there is a major problem with it, and I think to keep the purity of it, I would say, you know, this is being proposed, and it's an important proposal. So much so that the broad spectrum of the electorate of town should actually vote for it. So we're having the hearing, which is obligatory on our part, and, you know, regardless, this hearing is more than 21 days from the day of the annual town meeting. So therefore, this particular proposal does not need a vote of the board. It doesn't need a recommendation or a report of the board, because it's
Yeah.
more than 21 days. So we're having the public hearing, we can do whatever we want, but, this,
It's on the books.
Yeah.
To go.
yeah.
To town meeting.
So it will be voted on by the town.
By the town, in the format that it's
Yeah,
voted, that it
Yeah.
goes this way.
yeah.
So the planning board has no
So will that
authority
be,
to change it in any way? If there were,
I'm just,
if it were discovered that even that there's a problem with the way it's being amended?
yeah, I think the only problem with the way it's being amended, it's being amended in a way that will, allow for, the intended use to actually be utilized within the overlay district. I mean, 100-foot buffers are one thing, those usually stand up in court. There's plenty of court cases where towns have tried to put, greater distances of buffers between industrial parks and residential. 100-foot buffers stand up as a standard measure. 200 feet, they haven't stood up. 300 feet, they haven't stood up. The state statute for this is 500
It's
feet.
500 feet.
500
Yeah,
feet, with the
ironically.
option for towns to lessen that. Towns that are proponents of this, right, and there are plenty of them out there, and the ones that adopted the 500 feet, they're gonna run into the same problems we're running into. It almost null and voids, 90% of, or even 95% of lot areas that they're allowing this.
And
this,
lots, this is, I think, is the key to the whole thing. You said if we zoomed in and counted all the lots in
Yeah.
there, and I'm not saying to zoom in, I'm just saying that if we did,
Yeah.
you came up with 72 lots in total in the entire
yeah,
overlay district.
yeah.
And out of those right now, at this point, only 16 of them are unaffected by that 300-foot property line to property line
Right.
clause. And John, if this gets changed, how many would be affected? So we'd go from 16 that qualify,
To 40,
you go to 40.
yeah.
So we still have 32 that are
not usable?
in the district but not usable.
Yeah, and there's probably more. I didn't go through all the geographics, but, here's Martell. Here's Martell, for instance. Martell is within the overlay district. There's one lot right here, but I think everybody knows that. That one is wet.
Okay.
That's the existing building on the right, and this is the last one that's kind of in the island. That
The kayak place was.
yeah, yeah. And effectively, the only real buildable area here is right there. The rest of it's
This is where the herons.
yeah, yeah. But,
Big blue herons.
there's I'll zoom in a little bit more.
You're gonna be
Here we
stoned.
go. Hold on, see if I can zoom in a little bit more. But right here, this cul-de-sac, here it goes. That cul-de-sac right there. The wetlands start right there. That's a massive wetland all through here. So, like that lot, it's probably not buildable. This has potential, that has a building on it. All the Ps here, are potential marijuana lots with the change. The M, that signifies that those lots, are eligible with the ordinance as it stands.
Oh, good work. Yeah.
I tried to get more fancy, but the GIS system wasn't working.
That's right.
No, this is perfect.
It's
This is
easy
very
to
clear.
understand.
See that now? That's a P, and those lines, those all become eligible. Without this, they're not. None of those are.
But you said, John, that 40 of these won't be that are in the district, or 32 of them won't be. And my
40
No,
concern
no.
will
is,
If it stays the way
40 will.
language stays the way it is,
Oh, you only
it's a
have- you
total
only
of
have 16.
16
Gotcha.
of 72 lots.
but what I'm saying is, right now, with the proposed change, it'll bring us up to 40.
55%.
Why wouldn't we strive for 100?
Well, because some of the land you can't use at all.
Well,
It's
I mean,
wetlands or-
yeah, let's go through it, because
I
this
don't
map,
think that's
this
the
map really
limitation.
brings it out a little bit better.
Limitation is
Like
the-
these lots here, those are all, say, protected with the present. They have all M's on them.
They're eligible,
Yeah, they're eligible.
eligible
Did you say,
now.
excuse me, did I hear correctly, 16 of 70?
72,
72?
yeah.
Out
That
of
is to say
72
16
parcels.
M's,
Yes,
16 M's.
yeah.
Out of 72 parcels right now,
Right,
as the law stands,
yeah.
16 of them are eligible.
Are eligible.
Okay.
Well, for
And
you,
but they may be wet.
Oh, but I'm not saying there
Maybe
aren't
other
other
reasons that you
topographical
Yeah,
reasons.
I mean,
or-
everybody does
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
there's
There-
a
there
tremendous
may be
amount of wet out
restrictions.
there.
Yeah.
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 But the flip side of that is just strictly from a zoning perspective.
Yeah.
Why would we change it so that only, what did you say, 40 of them?
Well, only
55%
Well,
of them.
only because when I did all the measurements here, like even though these say P, they still, the building would still, the nearest building to the nearest prohibited use, right, would be 300 feet. That's the only reason these have three P's on them, because this lot in this particular area right here, 300 feet away from this residential district, so you'll have a 300-foot buffer still in place. So the nearest building would still have to be 300 feet away from the prohibited uses. And, you know, the same with here. These lots do have Ps, but their uses, the buildings that would be associated with the marijuana, they'd be way down here. They still have to be 300 feet away from here.
Right, and this one would have to be tucked way back here.
No, it actually, for here, it's down in this area here.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Otherwise, too close to these or
Yeah.
too close to
Yes,
these.
it's just surrounded by houses
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So that's the important part of it. The 300 foot does stay in place.
but these two over here are belong, all of them off of,
Long Hill,
off of Norina Way.
These
He
ones.
owns.
yeah.
That's one owner for all of them,
Lenny.
so,
Yeah.
Well,
no, not Lenny.
Not letting it down.
Irrespective of the
Yeah.
Norino.
owner.
But I mean, that could be worked out among the owner,
yeah,
I think.
yeah. I mean, I'm not
To
saying,
accommodate that,
I'm
that
not,
size of a building.
I'm not saying by any means these are all gonna be marijuana.
Right, right. And
You know,
But-
this
but
gonna,
potential.
there will
this is
be,
a solution
Yeah.
to get better than what we are right
yeah,
now.
and there'll be a tremendous amount of
I think-
shakeout.
I think I have something I'd like you folks to look at that might be a solution for 100% of them.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
Okay, so
So that
just,
we're not-
let's just, you
We're
know,
not playing pick
let's
and
just
choose
continue.
here at
Yeah,
who wins this game and who loses this game. This should flatten out the
right.
entire
And,
field.
okay, and,
All
I'm-
72
and,
lots.
you know, we have a light agenda, we only have one issue to be dealing with, but, just to continue on, we're almost done with this little presentation. So these lots right here, M, that's all wet. This one here, that's wet. This is in front of that building there. Those are two M's. In all likelihood, this property, and this is the town-owned property. I don't know what the future holds, but is a strong possibility those properties are gonna be developed with a different use than marijuana. There's strong attention to those right now in the market, and once we get through the annual town meeting, that's when the town is going to vote to either or not allow the town to sell those properties. But town meeting has to decide on that, and that's one of the issues that will be decided on at annual town meeting. And then here, this,
14.6 is a veterinary hospital. Isn't it?
no, that's the concrete
14.6
guy.
is a concrete plant.
Yeah.
Benvenuto's. That's Benvenuto.
The veterinarian thing is over here.
Yeah, it's in Ralph.
And that's our mission company, formerly known as Healthy Farms. So, and all this other mauve color is not in the overlay district. So you
So-
get the P for potential and the M for marijuana business use allowed outside of the 300 foot.
So in summary, what you're proposing is to create more marijuana facilities than we originally have in our bylaw. That's the goal.
No, not more. It's just, no, I don't think too many people saw into this hugely limiting factor that's existing right now. And the only way to, you know, release that stranglehold on limitation would be to amend it in some fashion. So this is one proposal. Harry has
The
something
way
else.
I'm looking at it right now, 72 lots in this district, when the town meeting voters voted for those 72 lots, whether they did it with a great deal of thought or whether they didn't, there's 72 lots, those owners of those parcels all said, oh, I'm in the marijuana district. And they have the opportunity to sell their land, utilize their land. But out of those 72 lots, only 16 of them are eligible, can come to the fore. That's wrong. That's just wrong.
Well,
just
you
wrong.
think it's wrong.
I
But for
believe-
somebody like myself,
I-
who's not in favor of marijuana,
Absolutely.
we're going the wrong way for me.
I'm looking at it as though neutral on the whole. Is marijuana good or bad? Is this industry good or bad? This is an industry. This is
Yeah.
value to land that people may wish to have.
Well, we've been working with that industrial line since it was created in the sixties.
Absolutely.
And I came to town, it was there. I could not
1,650
understand
feet.
it then, I don't understand it now.
It's the width of the
You
ruler.
got residential mixed up with industry. And I've been on the zoning board, and there was such an aggravating issue with smell for a business that existed and houses that existed
God bless you.
before. God bless you.
God bless you.
Before
Hood coatings.
the business, I didn't want to say.
Hood coatings off of Searle Street.
There was so much, the state finally had to, and the federal law had to finally get in to clean up the odor. The neighbors were so aggravated. I believe there was a court case.
And this is
The
what
neighbors
happens.
took the company to court. So, that's the other
at the
reason
heart
that
of
I'm
zoning.
so concerned.
It's the heart of zoning.
Yeah, but
A
you're-
residential district, an
We gotta
industrial
learn
use.
from our mistakes, is my point
Heart
of
of
bringing
zoning.
it
That
up.
idea is to separate those and to keep them separate. And that's what we're trying to do when you make a zoning district.
Well, I disagree. I think this is going the wrong way for me, and I would not support it at town meeting.
I respect that, but I look at it as though we have a district now, we've established a district, and first we had medical marijuana, then 1 year later, we had the the marijuana district, which we're dealing with this now, that's how it stands today. And now we're further tweaking this. No bylaw is perfect. The first couple of times it comes out, it needs to be changed. I see this as an opportunity now to go, John, I commend your effort. You got it up to 42 or whatever the number is there with this change. But I still say the 72 should be the number that we strive for. This is the district, and every one of those should be eligible. They're in the district. I have a way to do that, if you'll hear my
Okay,
suggestion.
and I just have one more thing to say, is that when, these people are planning, like any developer's planning, these site plans, these engineered site plans, these survey plans cost, in many cases, hundreds of thousands, 50,000, they're sizable, so it's a sizable investment. If they're put in a position of uncertainty relative to the application of the use, and it ends up being denied because of a discretionary aspect of it, they're out. They're out.
Isn't that the nature of any special permit?
Not really, because a lot of businesses, it's not a matter of, they're not liked. This particular industry still has passionate proponents and opponents,
I understand what you're saying.
so.
I understand.
And the special permit needs a supermajority of the planning board, it's not a simple majority. So, I mean, there's a lot of muster that has to be passed anyway. So what we're doing with this, with that 300-foot, through the site plan review process, anything that's, you might consider too close or not buffered, not landscaped, you can beef up that landscaping, you can, put a 12-foot fence up, you can require to make sure that separation you're really looking for.
Precisely my point, and that's why I'd like to suggest
And I'll shut up at this point and let you take the
Oh,
floor.
no, no, I'm just saying,
No.
this may be something that
Yeah.
might appeal, might not, I don't know. Just throwing it out there. John, you're talking about, what is it, paragraph I, which deals with separation?
Yeah.
And if everybody could just look at the wording of it, and if you're looking at the wording of it,
That's on page 3 of the staff report.
just for a moment, try to imagine that there's no boldface and no strikeout in the proposal. And it was pure just as it is, as it stands right now, as the law stands. And go to the last line, the last sentence of paragraph I there, where it says, "The distance requirement may be reduced by 25% or less, but only if." And imagine for a minute if you took the words 25% or less, and you struck them, and you inserted in place of that, by vote of the special permit granting authority. Just jot that down for a second and read it all out. I think what that does is, that gives every single marijuana lot owner eligibility, because it essentially says that 300 foot, in certain circumstances, even though it still says property line to property line, that distance requirement can be overcome in special circumstances, if, but only if, as you can see, but only if the applicant demonstrates exactly what John's been trying to explain, that, what is it, 40 or somewhat, no, what is it, over 60 of these parcels are ineligible. If you could, if you have your engineer just draw it out and show us that, we could waive it
Yeah.
as a special, as part of the special permit.
I
think
totally,
that-
I totally agree with that now that we've deliberated here this evening. I think it is a perfect solution to what we're dealing with. And, you know, some people may not see it that way, but as you just pointed out, there's no guarantee for any of this relative to the request for a special permit. The special permit has to pass muster with 2/3 of the vote here, just as it would have to with any other special permit
Supermajority.
granting authority.
Supermajority, sure.
So, you know, there's nothing in your proposal that would prohibit the use. It's just that it has to pass muster with us, the planning board, you guys.
Special permit granting authority. Can I point out one other thing? We're looking at it as when there's this potential conflict of less than 300 feet between residential use and the industrial use. There's also another aspect of this. It's not just the residential use. If you look at all of those, that list of, I don't know, there's like 15
Yeah. it's
things
on
you have to
page-
stay away from.
Yeah.
Page 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of them is other marijuana businesses.
Right.
Okay, so what you're telling me is, essentially, if I have a marijuana business,
You have to be 300 feet away from the next one.
I own the street, dude. I get the street. Guy next to me can't open one. This guy over here can't open one.
Yeah.
Even if I'm far away, even if I'm one of those lucky 16 that's out and far away from the residential district,
Yeah.
I'm keeping the other marijuana businesses far away. They have to be 300 feet too, which is crazy.
I think that's the
Absolutely
state.
crazy.
That's the state rule.
That, you know, and that, they use that, it's so antiquated
Yeah.
of a thing. That's to keep, you know, say Main Street from becoming just, you know, pot shops all along.
Right.
You know, in those particular towns that will allow for that. That's what that's all about. But it's just as restrictive as, you know, pizza places, you know, or restaurants. You can't have another restaurant with, I
Probably
was a
pizza
planner
places.
in a town where it restricted, you couldn't have another gas station within 800 feet of another one. You know, and it was always overridden.
Yeah,
It's
these
stupid.
You know, but all it is, it's a special interest buffer.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know,
And,
keep the
and
competition out.
if you think about it, what better than to have one marijuana business, perhaps a grower, ideally suited right next door
Yeah.
to a processor,
Yeah.
so that it doesn't have to go in a truck and get trucked somewhere. You can run a forklift in the backyard. The idea of putting these businesses together Isn't that the idea of creating a district? You want to group them together. But it sounds like this, we're pushing them apart.
The other thing that
Well,
happened.
how is your amendment going to change that?
Because it stays property line to property line, but the engineer could come in and say, hey, look, here's the site plan. Let me show you the property line to this next marijuana business, which prohibits me from going here. And then the board would be able to waive that. The board would say, well, in this case, in this particular case, now that we're looking at it under the microscope, that is kind of crazy, and we would waive it. And the only thing that I think people might be a little unsettled with is the vote. How would that vote? When I said by vote of the special permit granting authority, I think we might need to work on that.
Town
Is that a
council should
majority vote?
check that.
Is that a supermajority vote? Is that a unanimous vote? I think
No,
tweaking that might get a level where you're comfortable with
It-
that.
This would, in all likelihood, end up being the interpretation, because the primary permit is a special permit. Okay,
It's requiring supermajority.
right.
4 out of 5 votes.
The site plan aspect is really the supplementary. It's not the primary permit.
I'll give you that.
Okay, so the distance, there would have to be part of the special permit vote. The, waiving the 300 feet. And having
seeing
your
that as
language in there
supermajority.
would give the authority to the planning board.
The SPGA, the
Solely.
Special Permit Granting Authority.
Okay, it would give the permit granting authority the authority to waive that distance through the special permit.
Through
Not,
the
it
special
has
permit.
nothing to do with the site plan.
Right.
So you
So
would
it
need
it
a
would be
supermajority.
A supermajority,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I get you. Just an idea, throwing it out there.
I'd have to check with town council about that to see if that's workable,
What's that?
to, like you're suggesting, to have the board, have the application filed the way the applicant wants to put the building, as closest to the building, to the, what is it, how did you phrase it, the end of the property line?
No.
Building to property line,
Right now, it's property line to property line, separated 300 feet.
yeah.
Um,
Now you,
One of the proposals, the proposal that I guess is going to town meeting, it is going in and of,
Yeah.
it's going to town
Yeah.
meeting to be
Yeah.
changed from property lines getting stricken and building is being inserted. It's building to building?
it's not printed now.
No.
I think it is.
Well, what's the, Gary, can I ask you, what's the status? Is it,
We're leaving the warrant open on it.
okay.
You know, right now, I guess the best thing I could say probably is it's kind of like a placeholder.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
We
that's-
discussed it the other night as a board,
Perfect.
and
Yeah.
we took no position because we knew that you were having the hearings tonight.
Yeah,
So it was difficult for us to really take a position on it.
Absolutely.
But we do have it in there, and I think the language would later come from you after
Yeah.
this.
so that can be decided tonight.
After this.
Yeah, that can be
I'm
said.
not positive on that, but typically that's how many of these things work.
Right.
I mean, until the only thing I can say in a positive note of what Harry's talking about
Right.
is that the 300 foot is still there. It has to be proven by supermajority of this planning board,
Right.
whether or not they're gonna grant the permit for the use of the
Right.
site. I think it's ingenious, if I
Yeah.
could use that word.
I would say,
Because
it,
we didn't come up with it preceding this, and there were 5 of us working on it, so.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
blind squirrel trips on a nut every now
There
and
you
again.
go. The clock's correct twice a
Well,
Who's the
I
nut-
had,
who's
I
the
have a
nut and who's the
proposal
squirrel?
as well. My concern, a major concern with marijuana is children. Okay? So my proposal was that a marijuana business facility shall be not sited within a radius of 500 feet, the same as the state, on a pre-existing daycare center, a school, or playground dedicated for the use of children, and any similar facility in which minors commonly congregate.
Are you including personal homes?
No,
Keep in mind, Tilly,
Just-
we already have a list of 15,
yeah, but you don't have it as a radius, and you don't have
No.
the 500.
no, we have it as 300 linear feet
Yeah,
from the property
but-
line.
And that's how I would make the children, the uses that are already there. For instance, like a daycare center can't just move in after the bylaw. You know, they're not really the pre-existing. You know, pre-existing as of the day of the vote. And then the 500 foot distance shall be measured in a straight line from the nearest point of the facility in question to the nearest point of the proposed facility. That's how, in other words, do the amendment like you're suggesting for the 500 feet.
Why,
Then-
why
then-
500 feet?
Because that's the same as the state. And I just use that number because that's what the state requires, but they allow you to go less. So that's my concern is,
But you're saying 500 feet from like a daycare,
All of
a
these,
library.
From all of this.
all
from
this.
All of
But-
these lists.
right,
But we keep it at 300 for housing.
right.
Residential district's the first one on the list.
Well,
Yeah, it would be,
Tilly's saying not residential housing.
Yeah.
right, 300 for that and then 500 for everything down below. I don't really see, considering that there's no retail other than Mission,
Hmm.
and there's no residential close to that.
Mhm.
These are all gonna be
Question.
industrial buildings. Nothing's gonna say cannabis, nothing's gonna say marijuana.
People aren't going to be going in and out of it,
Right.
like, you know, just
It's
the
they're,
public.
But
No
you're gonna
retail.
get how, 60,000 building, square foot building. It's gonna be a lot of activity and a lot of trucks, a lot of movement there. The odor you're gonna get,
There's no odor.
there is odor, because I went to Healthy Farms,
Inside, yeah, but
but,
not outside.
yeah, I've smelled it outside. Anybody else smell it outside? What
No.
you smell is not the marijuana itself, it's the composting and the soil and,
Soil.
the
I don't know
the constants putting, well, just think of it, putting water on dirt, fertilizer, whatever, and roots, there's automatically a vegetation smell.
Well, I mean, you got
It's all-
Willowbrook Farm. You would, you know.
But it's elevated, it's on shelves, it's on tables, it's up in the air. It's not in the ground, which would cover a lot of the smell. But this operation is,
There's
One
no
of- one of,
soil.
one of the things that does happen, and we just witnessed this on a tour of Healthy Farms, is that all of the byproduct is captured and bundled and has to be properly disposed of, and it's off-site.
Right.
It goes to a central location and it's disposed of properly.
Yeah.
But everything that leaves there has to be chopped up,
that's right,
unusable
chopper.
pretty much.
yeah. But the dirt and everything is emptied because it's not
Yeah.
sanitized.
If there's
enough.
any odors that come out of the building, it's from the ventilation system.
I'm not exaggerating.
Yeah.
I could have passed out from the smell opening just the door.
You probably would've
I'm
got
not,
high.
honestly. I've never smelled anything inside a building like that. You know, I had to sit down and.
Oh,
they have a
inside the
nice-
building, sure, but not outside the building.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Sure, certainly inside the building you can
Well,
smell.
that's gotta go someplace.
Go on a tour.
Yeah,
You'll start laughing.
I
mean,
went
it's
on. I
not
went on a
marijuana,
tour there
it's
early
ketchup.
on.
Bring
yeah.
snacks.
So
No,
anyway,
they sell
that was,
snacks, brownies.
you can, kick it around. My proposal is I'm more concerned about the children.
One of the good things about, in this regard too, one of the good things is that there aren't any of those type of uses around there. You
Yeah.
do have the 40B, but when we looked at that particular development, there's no public pool, there's no public library, there's no gathering
Right.
area,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
And that, the strange thing with that obviously is that it's an industrial zone,
Right,
you know, so
right. you
they
wouldn't
took
get-
advantage of the 40B
Mm-hmm.
to place residents where they weren't scheduled to be or planned to
Right.
be, so.
And certainly, as an industrial zone, there would be trucks coming in and out of it, whether they're filled with
Right.
Yeah,
X or Y.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this does have an economic development
Mhm.
ring to it that would otherwise not be happening. In all likelihood. So,
if you wanted to include the residents, I don't see why that would be objectionable to me. But I know what I went through with the odor from one development out there, and it took many years. The smell actually embedded into the shingles of the house. That's how this odor was.
What was this?
What-
What'd they
This
do?
was-
Hood Plastics on Searle Street near the, what is that?
Woodman
The water
or
department?
Wood Street, is it?
Um,
Near the
Searle.
electric department.
Searle. You're on Searle.
Woodland, yeah.
Woodland? That's on Woodland?
Tilly.
Oh, no, I don't know, Woodland's the one that goes
Woodland
along next to the
needs-
house.
Yeah, this is.
I believe it's on
Searle.
Searle. I
Here.
believe it's on Searle.
And it goes down to Searle.
And
Yeah.
Searle is this up here, and then Martell goes off.
Tilly, do we want to open this to the public? If anybody wants to
Can
speak.
we open to Gary, would you like to make a comment? It's a public hearing, so the audience is welcome.
No, I don't wanna violate any open meeting laws if I make a comment.
Well, you can,
We have to be careful. I would just say that, you know, I'm pleased that you've recognized this and are taking it on to come to some solutions. I also, if anybody wants to look at it, I do have a draft of dated March 12th of what is on there. When you asked, I think it's the one that you were there that night, I believe, John.
Yes, yeah.
And you can read it to them, it's, I think the second one up from the bottom, is it?
No,
Oh,
at
nice-
town meeting,
Nice and
do we
brief.
state our position as a board? Or are we just presenting it?
Well, This is the question I have in my mind right now. I don't know what the warrant is going to say.
This is what it says right now, and it's really a placeholder, but it reads article, amendments to zoning bylaws, Article 18, marijuana businesses, Section 165, dash 161, H and I,
H.
to adjust the required separation distance between marijuana businesses and the uses listed therein and the criteria for measuring such distance. That's what it states.
Pretty broad.
Oh, okay, so,
So there's no, the way in which those changes are made are determined by the outcome of this hearing.
Right,
If I'm correct.
right.
That's
Exactly.
right, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
I understand.
And it'll probably end up being more specific as needed. And what we could do tonight, if we want to work towards an agreement, would be to have the language of 165, 61, 161I read as it is, and get rid of the bold, and get rid of the strike-through bold. That stays, as Harry just previously mentioned. And then, in the last sentence, the distance requirement may be reduced by the vote of the planning board, but only if. So, only if subsections 1 and 2 stay in place as is.
Absolutely, they have to,
Yeah.
but only if.
Hey, Doug.
Now, Harry, were you suggesting, though, that it's remains at the property line?
Yeah, because
Property line to property line?
that becomes irrelevant at that point, yeah. It doesn't matter, I mean,
Yeah.
and.
It
you know,
allows much more
We
flexibility,
can change
no
it from
question.
building to building, that is an option. But as John said, we're leaving out 32 potential parcels, and that just doesn't seem like a level playing field to me.
Yeah.
If we're gonna fix this, let's fix it to the best of our ability. Let's make it 100%, and let's make sure that every owner of every property there has the right to do it the way they wanna do it.
And what also happens too, before these plans come before the planning board, public hearing set up, you know, they're working with everybody. And they're gonna know enough to, you know, keep that building as far away as they can from any, you know, abutting residential district. And then through the site plan review process, you know, we would work with them relative to buffering the landscaping, you know, fencing, whatever, in order to maintain, you know, the most effective buffer, whether it's 100 feet or 200 feet or 300 feet.
Different topologies would require different buffers.
Yeah,
Right.
and the activity
And
itself.
the sad part about it is, you know, we've got this idea, 300 feet property line to property line. You know, we're trying to turn this into an algorithm. You know, you just have this magic number, the 300, that we're cranking in, cranking out. The reality is, give the owner of the land the chance to come to the board
Yeah.
and say, does this work?
Make the case, yeah.
Because it may be less than 300 feet, it may be more, I don't know, but the bottom line is, different parcels affect other parcels in different ways. And you have to look at each and every one
Yeah.
as they come
Separately.
before.
I don't agree with you.
Exactly.
Zoning can't be that flexible. You may as well throw out zoning. That's what you're doing.
Not at all.
You're saying that you don't wanna be concerned about the 300 feet from, you know, you want it 100%. So what you're asking for is, that's the marijuana district, period, and come to the zoning board for a special permit. You're not giving any direction. It depends on us, on the board, whoever there may be, to follow through. You gotta be more, whatever you're not really protecting the residents when you're doing that. That's like throwing out all the history of zoning in the state. It's like, you want it 100%, leave it like marijuana district, that's all you can do. You're not giving any regulations at all. You're not giving any guidance at all. It's marijuana, you want it, you got it.
I think the guidance is that we drew a line and the town meeting voters agreed to the line. In the same way we drew that line from industrial and said, okay, this is the industrial district on this side of the line, this is the residential district on this side of the line. You have to draw a line somewhere to try to avoid the nuisance.
And we did, the 300.
No, I'm talking about the zoning district. You're talking about a buffer. And there's case after case where that buffer doesn't exist in some of the industrial areas by bylaw.
Right.
When the zoning changes were made, there's somewhere it's 100 feet, just a 100-foot buffer between industrial use, not marijuana, but industrial use to residential use. That, it's all over the place. And I think that's because you want to be able to look at the use and you want to be able to look at the parcels in question
Yeah.
and make a judgment call. Yeah, you do sort of need an algorithm. You need this number. We have numbers that help us work it out. But there's nothing like 5 people all
Well-
looking at
The other
engineered drawings and saying, this is gonna work or this isn't.
Yeah, the other thing is, this, you know, people still look at this as something I don't like or I like, right?
Oh,
When-
marijuana.
Yeah, when in fact, okay, it is a business, it's an industry, you know.
It's legal.
This particular business next to, you know, the abutting commercial property, may be the most innocuous of uses, you know, blending into the scenery, not causing any trouble. Whereas a trucking terminal, you know, 1,000 trucks running up and down and idling out in the parking lot and, you know, being downstream from the wind of a trucking terminal, you know, is not pleasant, to say the least, you know, as
What-
opposed to, you know, these type of business. You know, you envision these businesses, and these aren't retail, these are primarily gonna be wholesale. And, you know, there isn't going to be a lot of cars running in or out, or
Right.
a lot of trucks. You know, it isn't a trucking terminal.
This is almost the definition of light industry.
But what happens if
Tell
you
me about
don't,
it.
if you don't have those kind of things in here, then the underlying district is what you have to follow. So you're going, what's on the underlying district is the 100-foot buffer between districts. That's how it goes with zoning. So you have an overlay your district. It doesn't mean all of the underlying district of industrial, any of those provisions have changed. Only addressing the overlay.
I think we could debate that.
That's the way it
At
is,
some
Terry.
point.
I don't think there's a debate.
I think that the overlay district takes, my understanding is that the overlay, the characteristics of the overlay district override the underlying districts. when
Not
it
if
is
you
an
don't
overlay.
say so.
Well, when you're granting a special permit for that
In the
overlying district.
bylaw, you have to write it. It's what I'm saying. You have to put it in. If you don't have those bylaws for the overlay and you're leaving it vacant, then you have
Leaving
to
it
follow what's
unsaid?
underneath.
You know, the other thing, if you could imagine, you know, just thinking of this as a business and nothing else, it's a business use. There's no other business use that requires a buffer. You know, so it's, you know, you have an isolated overlay district.
Can I-
You have an isolated overlay district, the most isolated area of town, basically, relative to abutting residents. Yeah, and you're right on the highway. This whole thing has been set up for industrial use, if there ever was one. This is a pretty well planned for industrial base location. And then, you know, you have what is pretty much an innocuous use. Not heavy industry, you know, not loud, obnoxious. You might not like the smell of stuff, the odor that comes out, but it could be a lot worse. And town's actually contemplating something that's a little bit more malodorous than
Gary
marijuana.
has a comment
Can I
now
just,
from the audience.
oh, okay,
I-
sorry.
No, are you acting as chair tonight?
Yes,
Mr. Lee?
it's
Okay, just-
me.
I just wanted it noted that you asked for comment, and I made a brief comment, but I wanted it noted that is Gary Fowler, resident, that made the comment, okay?
Oh,
I don't
okay.
want any,
Could you spell that for the record, Mr. Fox?
Thank you.
So-
Any other comment? No? All right. Doug, you do have a comment
Not
as a
this
resident?
moment. Not at this moment.
Okay, go
So,
get
could I
Harry.
just say that in the bylaw,
Mm-hmm.
and I know we don't have full copies of the bylaw, I'm using my old one from town meeting, but
I have mine from town.
under
meeting.
establishment, it says, under A, all requirements of the underlying districts remain in effect except where these regulations provide an alternative to such requirements.
Right.
And we're providing an
But if it's
alternative.
vacant, that's not what they mean. What they mean here is that there's a 100-foot buffer on the bottom, the existing industrial.
Maybe.
You got an overlay of 300, right? So the 300 would follow for the overlay, not the 100. But if you leave no distance from the top, then you're gonna follow the 100.
But we are leaving a distance.
300 feet.
We're leaving 300 feet.
You're leaving 300, well,
Oh, yeah.
the way you described it though, was if it was everything. You want
No,
100%.
that's the way you described it.
No.
You described it as being no more zoning. That's
Because
not what
he-
Harry was.
Didn't you say 100% you want
I'm
it?
saying 100% of the parcels that are in that zoning district
Yeah,
To
would
be
be,
used.
would be eligible to be used, instead of whatever the reduced number is, that.
So that
But,
would
but that's not in the bylaw. That's, he's not saying in the bylaw 100%. What he's saying is that in the bylaw, 300-foot buffer that may be reduced by the planning board when the special permit application is processed.
So how are you
If they can
talking
show that-
100%?
Isn't that right? Is
Because
that correct?
any of the ones that right now currently are P or for potential or worse, that are abutting, that could not, the way the bylaw is today, be permitted. Those parcels, the engineers could come in, the owners of those parcels could come in and say, look, here's the engineer drawing, we're gonna show you that your bylaw pretty much prohibits us from being able to cite our business here. And as soon as that happens, it's a trigger where the special permit granting authority would have the authority to say, okay, we can waive that.
Or not.
Or not.
Or not, absolutely, I mean, you
No
might get,
guarantee.
absolutely, or not.
Yeah,
Well, for
could you,
a
could
60,
you move down here?
Yeah.
These lots here,
Mhm.
they're obviously, no, that's fine.
What?
They're obviously,
Keep doing it, guys, keep doing it, I like seeing him do that.
they're obviously impacted by building here or here or here. So if somebody buys one of these 3 parcels, they'll come before the planning board for a special permit, and they wanna put a big building right here. We're gonna say,
No, that's too
I don't
close.
think so, that's too close. But these guys here, well, there's a big empty parcel here. This guy really can't build anything regarding it, related to cannabis? Because 600 feet away, there are actual people? What Harry's suggestion does is give these guys an option, gives this guy an option, gives this guy the opportunity to apply, but that's all. It's the planning board that can say,
Make his case.
these guys are gonna come with their pitchforks and fiery brands.
Don't know, you don't
And they
know.
should.
They could also say, we want retail,
We want what?
we want retail.
We want-
well, that's the
But we
thing.
already
I don't
have
wanna have to
retail,
get in my
so you
car.
can't get it.
We've already got one.
Well, retail gives you that additional
Get
3%.
the scooter and go down to Mission.
Well, you threw me off with the 100%.
I'm sorry, I only meant that 100% of the lots would then be made eligible
To
as they're
apply.
supposed to
To
be.
open them up.
To
Yeah.
apply.
As they're supposed to be. I mean, they're in the district. I mean, if you were an owner of land and you went away for 5 years and you just came back this morning and said, pulled up my map and said, hey, what's that funny looking district? Oh,
And the thing is, just to try to ease your mind with this thing too, it has to be a supermajority. And, the board, I believe, is highly rational in looking at a plan and trying to make absolutely certain it's not going to adversely impact an abutter. I mean, that's been the history of this board for years and years, to, really pay attention to what the abutters' concerns are and address those as much as possible.
I think that's where all this started. I mean, the extra additional benefit to this is that it also keeps the bylaw from separating marijuana businesses from one another. In my opinion, you don't need them separated. You want them to be able to be close to one another.
Right.
We're trying to condense this and
And-
keep it in
and
a
a truly
localized area.
Another positive note is that, the revenue potential for the town, in the town being in, serious need of revenue potential, for schools, police, fire, DPW, all that stuff costs money, and, one thing this town could use is a shot in the arm, revenue-wise.
We should
That's
buy a
just the
lottery
hon- That's
ticket.
just the honest.
Well, I'll
The-
tell you right now. Because I've been
Am I
in
right,
town a long
Selectman?
time.
Or, I mean,
Gary,
residents, excuse me.
but Gary and Doug will, I'm sure, agree that we've been in town a long time, and the more people that come, the more our taxes go up. It costs us, and I have not seen any money go to lower our taxes yet that comes into this town.
This
Because there's
could
no
be,
revenue.
this could be the deal.
Well, the
If there
development,
was a caveat on this marijuana, that it lowers our taxes, I wouldn't have any problem.
I
But
can-
there isn't.
I can tell you this
It's
much.
still up to the finance board, it's
They'll
still up to
have, they'll
the.
have more money to spend.
We're sitting here in the planning
And
board.
we won't see our taxes go down.
And we're sitting here on a planning board, and what we do a lot of is subdivisions, and every time you add, how does it work? For every dollar of revenue for residential that the town collects for taxes, the town will eventually spend between $1.25 and $1.38. For every dollar you get in from taxes, from residential,
From new
you will
development.
eventually
Yep.
spend
More,
Right.
yeah.
more. That's just the way it works, but
Yeah.
we don't see it because it's a moving target. It's always
And
moving.
of course, part of it is that property values go up.
Mhm.
As the quality of the town improves, the value of your property goes up. And that's a good thing, and, but if you're not selling it and you don't want the money and you gotta
Yeah,
pay
it's not.
taxes on it, it's not a good thing.
Yeah, but when you, the other thing, when you're reviewing the budget and you're paying attention to it, I mean, this town is trying to make sure that it's not wasting any money.
Totally,
It does
yeah,
everything
Well,
it possibly.
They do everything, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
still, it's increased, you need the services.
Right?
And you're gonna need services for the industry as well. There's no two ways about it.
But these guys are all
Sounds like
paying
an impact
extra
fee to me.
tax for that security.
For the building.
Well,
Now,
they have that.
Pay tax for the building.
They have that.
yeah, for your host agreement, you still
And
can't
you have
spend
the
it on anything you want.
Yeah.
You have to connect it to to the marijuana.
Resident Doug says that, that's evolving.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
evolving.
As
Yeah.
the business, as the industry evolves, that will all evolve, thinking will change, and
And that's why I'm saying that, questioning the retail. Right now, one person, one development can have 3 licenses. Who's to say the state isn't gonna say retail could be one of them? Who's to say that the state isn't going, they're not settled yet.
But
in
the town
state.
can still
Limit
say
it.
no to it, they can limit it.
Yeah, absolutely.
If,
Yeah.
if it meets the bylaw, a time frame in May.
Oh,
I had an additional question that actually isn't exactly associated with this. It has to do with numbers 1 and number 2 in separation. It doesn't, I wanted to make clear in my mind, this is 1 and 2, but only if 1 and 2, as opposed to 1 or 2.
Right.
Could we put and in there? Only if 1 and 2?
Yeah, that should be an actual and.
Okay.
Only if.
I like your thinking there, Harry. Because it does, what the intent of the overlay district was. The intent of the overlay district was clearly not, to exclude some parcels in the overlay district. They wouldn't have been part of the overlay district,
Yeah.
right? And I think, as you say, this board is not likely to steamroll residents.
I mean, the other part of this we haven't even talked about is the importance of this particular product and what medicinal qualities that haven't even been figured out yet. They're being studied. I mean, 2 years ago, we had a company in here that was is under contract by the federal government just to figure out what the potential medicinal qualities are of marijuana in all the uses. I haven't seen them to apply to come back here, but they may still be out there. So it's just not recreational, people getting high from this stuff. It's all the medical stuff that, you know, and all the salves and oils and everything else. And, you know, people swear by
Right.
this stuff as, you know, really helping them out with their arthritis, you know.
And these are products that
It's a drug.
could not
Yeah.
be studied. It was
Right.
illegal to study them.
Yeah.
And now it's legal and there's a lot of
I mean,
information.
I might be,
It's very
you may
important.
say I'm going a little crazy here, but, you know, Silicon Valley started with somebody in a garage. You know what I mean? And, you know, to be on the forefront of this and to look out 20 years from now, you know, we may be really proud of what we've done here, because this is a frontier
It is a frontier.
industry, and so much is still unknown in the potential for this product to really create something special for
And
human.
I believe that the risk to the town is low
Yeah, right.
by encouraging this development.
negligible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to go through Healthy Farms and do the full tour, I mean, it's almost scientific, everything that's going
It's
on.
like- it's like
high-tech
Epcot.
horticultural,
I mean, yeah.
right? I mean, and the products that are being produced, I mean, you know,
It's
you have to
very
be a-
professional, it's a lab.
You have to be an engineer.
Big Pharma goes green.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your preference? Let's wind this down.
We need that.
It's the green rush. This is the green rush. No, I don't think this is the
Are we
green
in
rush.
agreement to put down what Harry had suggested?
I
Well,
like it. Yeah.
if you'll hear it, I'll make a motion. How does that
Yes.
sound?
Go
And
for
so
it.
you're gonna read the way you want the wording to read. So you're getting rid of the bold print and putting back in the strike.
If that so exists.
Yeah.
If that so exists. Basically, what I'm saying is,
Mm-hmm.
I'm making a motion to amend chapter 165, I have this written down, John.
Yeah.
165-161I by striking the words, quote, 25% or less, end quote, and replacing them with, quote, supermajority vote of the SPGA, end quote. And to add the word "and" between I-1 and 2, paragraphs 1 and 2.
Harry, instead of supermajority, can you just specify 2/3 majority?
4 out of 5.
Right. 2/3.
What happens if we don't have a fifth member?
2/3 of the sitting quorum.
That's right, 2/3.
2/3 of a sitting quorum. That's a supermajority, but, just to
No.
put it.
No, it's 2/3
not.
of the board.
No, I'm just saying, what happens a lot, and it may happen, more often than you think it will happen. You have 4 members of the board.
Well, you
That's
have
still a
one no.
quorum.
That's the special permit requirement. If you have one not sitting here, and the special permit that you're hearing, that's a no vote if you're not there.
What happens if they have an empty seat?
So you have one no,
Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Supermajority, to my understanding, is if you have a board of 9, it's the 2/3. Then it's 2/3. If you have a board of 9, if you have a board of 5, it's 4 out of 5.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
2/3 is 4 out of 5 for a
that's
sitting
why
of
I
5.
use the word supermajority.
Yeah, so you have one no vote already before you.
I want that clarified for KMP, that is the intent. Because they may,
67%, in other words. 75% is 3 out of 4. 4 out of 5 is 80%. But
and
3 out of,
that's the safety of it.
right, but if there's an empty seat, the denominator is 5, not 4.
Still, yeah, stays that way. Yeah, supermajority. And just because I have heard of opinions out there where for special permit, even though supermajority was required for the permit in and of itself, lesser decisions being made by the board in the course of the hearing were able to be decided by majority vote. And so I want to avoid any and all confusion when I make this motion. I mean, actually, you guys don't have to.
Not that this matters, but a special permit requires supermajority, as you're defining it. And a site plan only requires a simple majority.
Right,
Right.
For that aspect of it.
that's it? That's the only amendment?
Yeah, to amend 165, 161I, because the way it currently is
Yeah.
the way it currently is. There's no boldface as it is right now.
Right.
Right.
By striking the words 25% or less, replacing it with supermajority vote of the SPGA, and to add the word "and" between I, paragraph 1 and 2. Keep it as simple as I can't distill it any more than that.
And all of the highlighted changes are
Those
still.
don't exist.
They're
Those don't
gone.
exist.
Right.
Remember that this is just something that John wrote up to make it easy for us. It was a proposal. My understanding from what.
That's right. We're fine.
What is on
With
there.
what with what you just did is fine.
I would hope so.
Struck out. and
Relative to inserting
Okay.
an article that reflects it.
Yeah.
And same down
Yeah.
here.
And that will fit.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And then from 25%.
I mean, it sounds like
Supermajority.
we've got the same numbers and
Of
everything
the-
that are in here.
We'll work it out.
Special permit granting authority.
I think it's fair.
Yeah,
I don't think.
No, I agree, I think that we should get,
it's clear.
Is that
Yeah.
the
Wording.
Legal
Is that-
definition of supermajority for this board.
The
John,
final.
I think it would be a good idea to
I
get
know we had another
uh,
one,
But
but
why
a legal
preclude-
opinion on what
Because they-
constitutes a supermajority of this
they
board.
could come up
Yeah.
with. a
Because
viable
we may
option.
be in that kind of tricky
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Come again, I'm sorry.
What, how about this,
I'm
we,
suggesting-
what we need to be is consistent, so whatever whatever the language is for a special permit,
Mhm.
Just to stay with it.
just to use that language, whatever that is.
I was suggesting that we get a legal opinion on how a supermajority is defined for this board, just to make sure that we're not guessing.
Well, we aren't, but it's 4 out of 5 and go for it.
Okay.
It'll be-
Oh, so it's 5, you're sure it's 5?
4 out of 5.
Not the members seated.
4 out of 5 is a supermajority.
Yeah, I
That's
know
how it
it
works.
is true, but
Yeah.
he's
Okay,
got a
all right,
question.
that's
But
fine.
if you have a question, I mean, go.
No, I don't want to spend the money.
I don't blame you.
I don't
All
want
right,
to.
we have a motion
They'll
on
be
the
going
floor.
over what you present before town meeting anyway,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
So I made that motion.
I second that motion.
Oh, okay.
You have a second?
Well, thank you.
You're
You have a
welcome.
second.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes?
Yes?
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I'll make another motion. Make a motion to close the public hearing for zoning amendment to amend chapter 165-161.
I second.
Ready to vote? Okay. All say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Awesome. Success. All right. All right, let's see if we can move to our last item.
Now a town meeting? Is it
Okay,
said
the next
that we
thing we have
support
is
it?
you.
Or,
At last.
Thanks for waiting for us.
okay,
Okay, let's see
like
what,
they normally do, yeah.
with one.
come on up. Tell us what you were asking for.
This is the A&R, right?
Yeah.
69, 275 Central.
Yeah. Basically, I'm trying to refinance for my house. And I have a lot of commercial influence, so in order to do that, I had to connect 269 all the way around my property and leave the residential in the front.
So basically, what we're doing here, and board got this in the staff report, these bold lines, this would be the new lot, lot 1A. And he's taking out these parallel lines here, going all the way back to the end of the property. That all becomes, all this backland within these two lines here become all part of the main lot that houses Noonan's.
Becomes lot 1.
Yeah.
Right.
It's remerged with lot 1.
So you're
Yeah.
just changing the direction of the lots?
Yeah.
Going halfway back.
Yeah,
I remember when this came out of 61A.
yeah,
I remember being one of the people that voted, well,
Yeah.
that we didn't want it as the town. Yeah, I remember that. And then I laughed, when I saw the way that it bisected map 9 lot 1
yeah.
and just cut it in half. But the two halves stayed the same number. The most unusual thing you'll ever see on a map, on an assessor's map.
John, is that correct that it's in the RA?
Thanks, Doug.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Good
That
night.
radius is the line.
Yeah, the other thing to keep in mind here, and as I report in the staff report, the site plan that's active right now is still ongoing. There's going to be an as-built plan produced from that, when it's completed.
You're talking
And,
about for Serena's?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
yeah, and, at that point, they'll be coming in with a plan, survey plan, that incorporates as an amended site plan, basically, all of this land here. But in all likelihood,
draw
we're
it
gonna be,
anyway.
we're gonna be dealing with an amended site plan pretty soon
But you have
anyway.
to draw it
so
anyway.
That issue will be taken care of, sooner rather than later.
Well, Noonan's was supposed to come back when they finished the parking lot. If you look at the decision, it wasn't
Yeah.
completed.
Yeah,
The parking lot is well underway right now.
Yeah, talking with
I see it's-
the applicant's engineer, in all likelihood, we'll be dealing with, in the not too distant future, an amended site plan. You know, cause they have to reconfigure
They
some of them.
changed it, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
they'll be coming back in, and then at that point, we can get another plan
Yeah,
that
to
incorporates
incorporate,
the whole thing.
yeah.
Okay,
Madam
can I
Chair,
have a motion?
Madam Chair, if you'll hear it, I will make a motion to endorse, plan of land, 269 and 275 Central Street, prepared by Hancock Associates with a stamp by Edward Dixon and with a date of, what am I looking at here, kids? Where is, March 14th, 2019.
I second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi. Am I last?
You're set.
Yes, the Mylar, and then there's a Form B also, that needs to be endorsed.
Talk to the clerk, buddy.
And one of these days, I'm gonna get that motion right. Endorse. Not
It
approve.
took me a while too, John.
Yeah. Endorse. Yeah, there's two Form Bs that need to be signed by everybody in that green book. The one is for the one we did last week, and the other one's for this particular plan. So,
I have it all,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
not
yeah.
100%.
But,
But
yeah.
I'm getting better.
But, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Don't need it.
Strengthening the ankle. And, you know.
Good.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You gonna have an opening day?
Hoping very soon. The parking lot, we got, they finished grading, I think, in 2 days, and then they're starting to repave everything, so,
Great. That's
It
good.
looks like it's gonna be awesome.
yeah.
It does.
So the only thing we really have left is the floors in the cafe and the finished electrical, so,
Super cool. Yeah.
May.
yeah. That's what we're hoping for.
I see you got a liquor license, didn't you?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a big
just
thing.
beer and wine. So it's not to serve, it's.
No fire water.
Yeah, it's just local beer and local wine, trying to go with farm to table type stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh,
That's
that's
cool.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Locally grown barley. Local source.
Yeah.
Do we have that paper signed?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just reading it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Reading?
Sorry.
Pick that up.
We don't read what we sign.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Well, I have to look and see where my name goes. John, refresh my
anything
memory.
else, John, that you
Which
wanna-
one's this
Yeah.
Form B?
You got something else?
That's from last week.
That was
The
last
last
week?
meeting, the last meeting. Pine Grove. Yeah, I didn't have Form B ready for that night. The only other item here, and this might pique your interest. Actually, the name of it is Tink, it's not Peak. But we do have a site plan in already for one of the marijuana uses. This is the liquid, if you haven't heard about this one. This one produces liquids from cannabis, the plant. And it's a new building. It's 11,000 square
Thank you.
foot.
Here,
And
put it in here.
it's proposed, let me get it up on the screen here. Whoop, no. Yeah,
You
no.
have to sign one, please. Tilly, you have to sign one.
Yeah, I got it.
Where'd I put that one? Hold on. Yeah. Hold on to 1 second. I'll find it. There it
We
is.
closed the public hearing, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. You wanna open it again?
Alrighty, now, this is a request to establish an escrow account having to do with one of the proposed marijuana uses. Again, it's an 11,000 square foot building. It's proposed for this site right here. This one right there.
The old Neptune,
Yeah, yeah.
Neptune demolition?
And it is going to require Larry's review. You know, it's a new building, there's gonna be drainage that needs to be looked at and everything else. They already submitted the funds for independent review, the peer review from,
Oh, they've established
Yeah.
an M account.
Why did they do it like this? Why did you accept it like this?
for this, because
Yeah,
it.
instead of an
it-
application.
No, they already did the application, it's all submitted, we're getting it ready for the public hearing and everything else. This is just thinking ahead,
Uh-huh.
getting the M account established and, you know, so we're not bogged down.
But we're not sending it off to Larry yet.
So this is your idea?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, you know what, we send these plans out, and we've had this discussion before, you guys, you know, accepted it like a lead balloon, but, we send out these plans to everybody, but we don't send them out to Larry, and, you know, he's the most critical person to get feedback from, he's the only qualified, you know, person that's really looking at any of these plans when it comes to stormwater runoff, stuff that needs to, you know, be reviewed, so that the plan is being developed properly. So he should be one of the people that does get these sets of plans when they come in. And so that eventually we get to a point, this planning board, when we have that public hearing, you're going to have a set of engineered plans that have already been looked at. You already have that initial feedback. And you have the response letter in revised plans that resulted from Larry's analysis. Otherwise, what happens is, yeah, they get here, we know it has to be looked at by Larry, you know, and that's another month. You know, it just adds another month to the review of a plan.
As I recall,
It's not a new
the
idea.
reason that we do it like we have been doing it, that Larry does not want to accept an incomplete plan. He would prefer that if the board saw it and identified areas that it didn't have on there, that, and it would prevent him from almost engineering the plans over again. And some people would send in applications figuring, well, I'm gonna get some work out of him, instead of doing their own engineering. He's really the review guy, he's not the designer and, you know, engineer for the plans. And that, the way we did it was to avoid him doing the work. And usually, I know one instance anyway, he sent it back.
Yeah.
He told the board, he told the applicant, he told the board, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, you know, what I have noticed, you know, since I've been here, is
Yeah.
that the quality of the plans are not normal. They lack quality. You know, and they probably do it for a reason. You know, but there's a lot more quality being built into these plans now. Because they're being scrutinized by myself, they're being scrutinized by Steve, Les. You know, the people are not getting away with just throwing stuff on the table, because they know they're not gonna get past go. You know, so you have to review it, it's my job to review, to make sure
Right.
that it's a complete application, and that the plans aren't junk. I mean, I was really
Exactly.
surprised, I really was surprised when I first came here, of the lack of quality in the plans, just to be completely honest with you. In comparison to other communities that, I've been associated with. And, that's something that they must have felt that that's what they do here. You know, they can throw that stuff and, you know, you're just not getting the quality you need. You're not getting a
No.
recordable plan,
Right,
you know, you're not getting a plan that's going to pass muster engineering wise.
sure.
But what happens when you get that plan, say, those plans here, we're gonna scrutinize and design the thing for them
Mm-hmm.
when there's no sitting engineer here. You know, you'd have to have Larry here anyway, if that was the case.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, they've gotten the word, you know, I've told them, you know, you can't just submit, you know,
Yeah.
insufficient plans,
Notional,
substandard
yeah.
plans, you can't.
Right, right.
It doesn't work
Well,
that way.
That's good.
Yeah.
Have you chatted with Larry about this idea? It might be a good idea just to pass it
Yeah,
by. 'cause-
yeah, and you know, one thing I can say is that I have terrific conversations with him about everything that's going on. He called up the other day and was wondering if we still in business. I said, Larry, everything's been backed up and nothing's coming in. And
Right.
as soon as I hung up that phone, I'm dealing with no less than 5 plans right now, and we have 3 public hearings already scheduled for the second meeting in April. 3. There's 2 more that want to be on. I said, no, you know, we have 3 that night. That's
Yes, enough
enough.
for one night.
We're putting the other 2 on for the first meeting in May. But there's a whole slew of plans. You guys are never going to. You haven't seen how busy it's going to be getting this spring as you haven't seen it in years, probably. At least since before 2007.
And these are just residential plans?
No, residential, commercial, yeah. There's 3 marijuana businesses coming in, one's already in. We have 3 subdivision plans, smaller ones, nothing big. And then we have 2 residential settlers that's come in, and they wanted to submit today for, you know, a meeting in April. I said, you guys are too late, you know, I'll get you on the first meeting in May, and that's the earliest. So, all of a sudden, Larry's gonna be slammed with plan reviews. So this is one way to get them going, and
You're to be applauded and
Yeah.
commended
Doing good.
for doing it, everything you're doing, John, and trying to be proactive like that.
Absolutely.
Like I said, it's not a new idea. We've tried it in the past.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes it works, sometimes it created some issues.
yeah.
Tilly addressed some of the issues that it created.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember a meeting where the applicant came in, we had plans. Larry's comments came in that night, so the plans that we were looking at and that we had for the last week were completely null and void, don't even bother looking at them. Well, what are we looking at? We're opening a hearing tonight. Well, we don't have those plans yet for you. So we're opening a hearing without plans, because the plans are being reviewed prior to the hearing opening. Maybe I'm shell-shocked from that.
No, you know what, you have to.
You get
Maybe I am.
No, no.
It seems like a waste of time.
No, but the deal is, right, what, the plans that you get in your packet, those are the only plans that you're gonna review that night. They're not coming in with a revised set of plans the night of the meeting. That doesn't happen.
That's what happens when you sometimes have the plans before you say, have these plans reviewed by Larry Graham.
Yeah, but see, that's my job. If they're not ready to go, you know, with the revised plans, right, for the packet, it's time out. You guess what? Your public hearing is going to be continued. You know, that will be the motion that the board makes at the meeting, even though you're on the agenda. You're not moving forward. I mean, some towns are not organized enough, and that stuff happens, and it's a wicked.
It's not the organization, it's just, sometimes timing just doesn't work out. Larry has a problem, or the engineer doesn't get back in time, or this or that,
I mean, if I didn't know
which
how-
is understandable,
yeah, if I
and a
didn't-
continuation.
If I didn't know how to manage planning board agenda items and how they have to be presented that night, especially that initial public hearing night, if I didn't know how to manage it, it would be mayhem. I mean, the developer will literally throw anything they can at you, and it's up to you to manage it. It's up to me to manage it, period.
Right.
And if I'm
And to
not,
say no if you have to say no.
oh, yeah, I mean, you know, you gotta crack the whip, you gotta, you know what you're doing, and you gotta manage it properly. You know, today, oh, what do you mean I can't go on? Well, guess what? You know,
bad.
people literally think they can drop a plan off, and it's gonna be on the next planning board agenda, next week. I say, you have no idea, so I'll explain it to you. You have to submit the plan, right, in the application. It has to be deemed complete. I said, do you know part of the process is that you have to submit a full application down with the town clerk? No, well, you do, because it's never considered a complete application unless you do that. It isn't, so you have no deadline of time. The planning board has no deadline of
21
time
o'clock
until it
doesn't
is
start ticking.
sketched. Yeah.
Okay.
So
You know how
then-
to delay the clock if you have to.
Right, so there is it is a definite, defined statutory process,
Oh, absolutely.
backed up by case law.
Absolutely.
On all of this.
Mm.
So, then, once the application is complete, then and only then can you deem to schedule a public hearing. Now, to schedule a public hearing for, you know, a standard subdivision, you wanna put it in the Georgetown record, that's 3 weeks in advance.
'Cause it's Thursday only.
Thursday only, yeah,
Absolutely,
if you wanna put it across the street,
Eagle.
you know,
Yeah.
over in Haverhill, you still need 3 weeks, because it's 14 days prior to the day of the hearing, you know, and then 7 days, you know, 2 publishing dates, but you can't snafu that. Otherwise, you can't hold a public hearing.
You can hold it, but given the
Yeah,
abutters,
so
quite
people
a,
don't even know that.
quite a thing
and-
to
yeah.
appeal on.
And the abutters notices have to be date stamped 14 days prior to the
Right,
hearing.
right.
Anybody comes in here and doesn't have one of those things, date stamped, and that, yeah, gotta start all over again.
I was wondering if this applicant that wanted to go ahead and jump the gun, more or less, and go directly to Larry, if he was trying to beat before the town meeting, knowing we have an amendment going in. Is he,
No, this is a lot that is one of the M lots.
it's which one?
It's one of the M lots, it's this one here,
So it's a lot that's already good to go.
yeah.
One of the holy 16?
Well, what if across the street,
This one
what
here,
if he got his approved?
Marijuana
Would that be
sprinkled on.
300 feet?
would it, this one here?
Yeah.
No, this
Would it
one,
be
this
300?
one right now, this one cannot apply until and if that amendment is successful. You know, you
Yeah.
did mention, Tilly, that maybe the relief is that they go to the ZBA, and that would be the case. Say it's a conditional use permit for a cell tower. Where the conditional use permit granting authority for the cell tower, we would be for the tower itself.
No.
If the fall zone impacted the required setback.
CBA is in that community.
Yeah, but
Yeah, oh, if we were-
if we were.
Okay.
But say the fall zone impacted the required setback, the fall zone of the
Right.
the tower,
Okay.
they'd have to go to the ZBA for a variance and then come to the planning board for a conditional use permit. Yeah, we have no,
I love
unless it's
Massachusetts
specified,
land law.
unless it's specified in the zoning ordinance, who has the dimensional variance
I thought I saw
authority,
it.
right?
Appeals.
Unless it's a ZBA. We don't have any jurisdiction over a zoning ordinance dimensional variance unless it's specified.
But
And in this language you produced tonight,
Specify.
yeah,
it says in the appeals, it says, the decision of the special authority and/or building inspector may, on any project subject to the provisions of this section, may be appealed pursuant to the provisions of chapter 165-98 of the town's bylaws.
Yeah.
So
so the
that's
ZBA.
after a decision.
Hmm.
The decision, it says.
Yeah, the decision of the zoning administrator,
Right.
yeah. Every decision of the zoning administrator
No,
can be
of the
appealed.
special granting authority,
169.
which would be us.
165-98 is Superior Court?
I don't know, what's 160, I don't have my own
Yeah,
book.
the appealing body for us is a competent court.
The
Court of
court.
Competent
Yeah.
Jurisdiction?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Because it could be Superior, it could be Land Court.
Could be land, yeah.
Yeah,
Most of the stuff having to do with us subdivision-wise is Land Court. Site plan and special permit stuff could end up in Superior
that might be something.
as
you should-
opposed to land.
You should check that over with, the building inspector, and we could put it in. Before the town
Technically,
meeting.
by law, he has to review all proposed uses, and he's the zoning interpreter. So he has to make a zoning determination for all proposed uses. That's within his jurisdiction.
Right.
Anybody aggrieved by his decision can appeal that decision to the ZBA. That's the local appeal body, is
Yeah,
the
I think that's
ZBA.
probably what 98 is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people end up before the ZBA, you know, because they were aggrieved by his decision. You know, whether it's a house that doesn't meet the setback requirement, can't, gotta go to the ZBA. A building, you know, that second building on the lot on Carlton Drive, ZBA,
2 buildings on a lot.
yeah. Otherwise, it would come to us if it wasn't an aggrieved matter.
Used to have to go to both.
Yeah, it's aggrieved too. He makes that determination that it has to come to the site plan. You know, they can't just get a building permit out of him and get to come here.
Not to go back to what you were talking about before, but is this something that we would want to do with respect to establishing the M account? I mean, establishing an M account is nothing you need authorization to do, ever, in my opinion. That's all ministerial and that's done. The question of how, spending the money from it, that, I get what you're saying. Do we want to do that? Do we want to send information to Larry Graham prior to the opening of the hearing? And I'm on the fence about that, I don't know. Is anybody making a motion, or nobody's making a motion?
Really, I think,
I mean, we can't do anything unless technical review is done. You know, some stuff is so minor, you don't need to, and that can be, you know, that can be decided at the public hearing. But when you know a site plan is going to require, you know, peer review,
did he give you a
Might as well.
registered check or a regular check?
regular check.
Put it in the bank. You put it in the.
Yeah, that
Deposit it
reminds me,
right away.
you signed that, the surety reduction that we took
Yes, I-
action on? Okay, good, yep,
Did we
here it
sign
is,
it?
right here, yep.
I
I got
don't
it.
know.
I don't remember signing that. Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I do.
yeah. That was
Yes.
early
Yes.
on.
Yes, that was one of the vouchers.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm just trying to streamline things a little bit better and get things working in order, and, you know, have a more completed application for the initial public hearing, rather than, you know, not having Larry's in hand. Larry's critique in hand at the initial public hearing, it really is of utmost importance. That, you read that, and you're gonna have a real good understanding of what you're dealing with at that public hearing. And you're going to know where to look in the plans to reference his critique, you know, his peer review. And, you know, in the ideal world that I'm trying to create is that you're going to have the applicant engineer's response letter responding to Larry's critique, and the plans being revised to reflect Larry's concerns.
See, there's the timeline.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
There's
having
the
it all
timeline.
together
That-
before we see it.
To
Yeah.
achieve that goal
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
before
It even gets to us.
before it gets to us has been in the past challenging and unachievable.
well, it doesn't happen. The public hearing does not happen unless that's,
So you'll be
plans are
the,
that far along.
you'll be the police officer,
You
and won't
know
really
what,
come to
the
us until it's
applicants,
there.
you know, when you explain it to the
I'm ready to
applicant.
try it once.
No,
I'm ready to give you a shot.
Yeah, no, when the applicants understand that, they
Right.
know it saves time. They know, if they don't, I can drill it into their heads. Guys, you're talking about, you're gonna have to revise the plans in accordance with Larry's recommendation, okay? If there's any discrepancy, he can hammer that out, right? You can address that.
But some things Larry will say, that's up to the board's decision.
That's right.
Oh,
Right.
Which is,
Oh.
which is fine.
Yeah.
yeah, oh,
So that
But
delays it a little bit.
revising a site plan twice is normal. 3 times is normal sometimes,
Yeah.
but, you know, what we wanna do is get to the point where we're done with the technical review, as, you know, early as possible, and then all the other concerns, the abutters concerns. So after the public hearing, a thorough public hearing, with Larry's revised plans, and the critique of Larry, and the response letter from the developer's engineer, we're ready to go that night. You're gonna have all the information you need to feel really informed, and then listen to the abutters, and, you know, we're gonna be
the
that
challenge
far.
is getting that response from the engineer.
Yeah.
Not Larry. He'll rock and roll and he'll get it out to them.
Yeah.
But they will walk in that night with the response.
Right.
And
No.
we
But John
have
won't, John
No,
won't leave
I,
them.
honest to God,
unless-
Harry, I
But then you're
mean,
opening a hearing.
I-
So now there's nothing to talk about.
no.
Motion to open the hearing, opens, public
Yeah.
notice is read,
Right,
green cards. Oh, we can't talk about anything? Okay.
yeah.
What do you mean you can't talk about it?
Well,
Because
because
they're not ready for it.
They're not ready and they
Oh,
have
no,
to-
no. I managed.
that's where we were, and I'm, you know
Yeah,
what,
in
as
Hudson-
I said before, I'm ready to rock and roll and try
Yeah.
this.
for-
I'm
for
good with this.
15, almost 16 years in Hudson. Automatic.
You
This
got it
is
down.
how it works. It's a manufacturing process.
Okay.
You know, the product that you guys get is a complete product. That
I'm
you
ready.
don't have to kill yourself over. All you have to do is really read Larry's report and that of the applicant responding to Larry's. So it's you know, if it's 10, 20 issues that Larry has an outstanding concern with, they're all addressed in the response letter. And at that point that we have those ready to go, that's when we have the
We can
public
make a
hearing.
decision. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's tricky, but it has to be managed that
If you
way.
can pull it
So
together,
the applicant, what happens is the applicant
if you
doesn't
can't
get
pull
a.
it together, I'm gonna mock you mercilessly.
All right, no.
Okay, and you know that, you know I will.
No, but
You
what
know.
happens is, from the date they submit, in all likelihood, it's gonna be 45 days before you have the hearing. But, you know, it's better to have a hearing, and this is what I'll explain to them, it's better to have a complete hearing, really ready to go with all the information the planning board has to possibly get to a decision that night. Or, you know, be in the final stages, as opposed to, you know, starting from scratch and the board knowing at the first public hearing, hey, you know, we're not ready to go towards any type of decision or really towards any type of thorough review. Because we don't know what Larry's, you know, what his thoughts are. We don't.
In the long
So
run,
all
it may
it does
save
is-
time, because we won't be seeing the same person 2, 3 times or
Yeah,
whatever.
but did you stamp that application as planning board accepted?
Not accepted, as, it's stamped as submitted. It
Submitted.
never gets, nothing gets accepted until you say it's accepted.
All right.
So that's the first
But
order of business.
I was thinking if there was, to really see that this is smooth as you're hoping it is, I would like to see like a cost analysis of your time. How many times you've gotta communicate with this applicant? How many times Larry has to communicate with you or vice versa? Just to rectify that this is smooth as
Yeah,
far
but
as your time.
it wouldn't take any more of my time, right, than it already does.
Well, sure, but we're trying to improve you. We're trying to put you on other jobs.
Believe me,
We're trying to-
at this point in time, Tilly, I need 2 of me. And it's
Well,
gonna get worse from here on
We've
out.
had a list before you even arrived. We've had a list
Yeah.
since I've been on the board, what,
Yeah.
3 terms?
The problem with this coming year, we've gotta get through this onslaught of applications. You know, it's just gonna be a priority to get through them. And then, you know, once this rush of plans, so from here to the end of June, it's gonna
Yeah.
be straight out that stuff. And we're gonna have that public hearing ready for, what did I promise you guys, the
Push
24th
it
of
wherever you
April?
have to push it to, the one for stormwater?
Yeah, that's gonna be the
That's our
24th.
private, that's our personal
Yeah.
planning board regs.
Yeah.
for chapter 57.
Yeah.
John, if you have to push that out, I'm good with
No,
you
no,
pushing it out
24th
wherever you
is-
have to.
no,
Let's-
we'll have
let's-
three-
Let's
we're
leave
gonna-
ourselves,
Yeah, we're gonna have 3 public hearings for projects, the 24th of April, and we'll have that. That'll be the last item we'll
And
deal
as soon
with.
as that's done, we're going right into subdivisions
Right,
for the storm drain.
yeah.
I don't know about you guys, I'm ready to give John a green light.
Mhm.
I'm good with that, I'm not
I
gonna make a
don't know any
motion.
better, so I'll give
I'm not
it-
gonna make a motion,
Yeah.
go for it, one time shot,
Okay, all right,
prove
we're
us
gonna,
wrong.
wait, and you know what,
Show that
everything
history-
goes right, but what's going to end up happening, we're gonna have to do this, especially in the next few months. Otherwise, we'll have a backlog and never get anything done, and it'll just be a mess.
I'm good with you,
Yeah,
giving it a shot, okay?
and just think, a
Liaison
lot
letter.
of these have wetlands, so, you know.
Oh, so we'll get plenty of time,
Steve,
right.
yeah.
we'll have plenty of time.
I
Steve will
doubt-
be
I
Well, they
doubt-
only meet once a month and we meet twice a month, so that's,
I
You
have
guys
a
have to
quote.
sign this.
Wait a minute.
Oh, okay, good, thank you.
What's up?
I just wanted, if the audience is still.
they're still right there.
Oh, get out of the way.
If the
Only one
audience,
guy left.
if the audience is still awake back there in TV land, I just wanted to make an announcement that we lost
Oh, yes.
one of our active people in town.
Reg?
Reggie Tardif, who passed away this Sunday, was it? This week. And he was very active and dedicated school teacher, and as well as finance board and other activities in town, and he will be missed. And I wanted to say the people that he'll be waked the couple of days. So,
I think it's tomorrow.
so thank you,
Conti Funeral Home.
if you're still out there. Now I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn, madam.
Second.
You didn't even catch a finish what you're saying, you were second.
That's how this is done.
I just need at least 3 signatures on there, and I won't bother you anymore.